Hey guys, and welcome to Fatherhood. You are listening to the Dad's Group podcast, a place where you and I get to connect with incredible leaders, shape the future of fatherhood together, and dig deeper into what is happening inside the minds and hearts of new and expecting fathers. In this episode today, I'm going to be actually interviewing our Dad's Group legends, Tom Docking and Adam Tardif. We work together with a project team of Dad's Group minus some. But this is going to be a conversation that we have for you guys to get to know us, a little bit of our story and our journey of fatherhood, but also how that ties into Dad's Group as an organisation and what drives us in what we actually do. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we all meet on today. I'd like to pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people we have listening to this episode today. But welcome, guys, to the podcast today. Tom, Adam, great to have you, mate.
Thanks, Blair. Excited.
Yeah, thank you, Blair. It's very exciting. I've been really looking forward to this one, actually.
Yeah, I'm pumped because, Adam, I've been working with you. Well, I've known you since pretty much we met at the Docking Farm in Tallangatta. That was the first time I met you, and I didn't actually talk to you much there. And that's a whole story there that I'll actually come back to. But then I got to know you more after I started working with Dad's Group. But even then, our roles are so quite different that we have a short hour, like twice a week, to actually chat. So I'm actually really excited to hear more of your story. And Tom, you look very comfortable again. We're in your random location. Our first episode was you on the beach, and now you're at the airport and loving it.
Albury Airport's a lovely spot.
Yeah, got a good little nook there, I see. It's fantastic, mate.
Apologies in advance if any announcements come over the speaker calling me onto a plane.
Good, we can track
to the one person that's there.
Yeah, exactly. The one other passenger. No, that's awesome. And so we're just going to start here. I'm just going to start through some questions. Again, really relaxed, really chilled. It's just a conversation that we're just going to have a conversation and see where it goes. But I want to start off, Adam, I'm going to start with you, mate. What were you expecting about fatherhood that didn't happen? Like, what's something that you were waiting to happen that didn't actually happen?
Oh, good question. What a big question to start with.
Yeah, man.
What did I hope?
All right.
What was I expecting that didn't happen?
Buzzer's gone. Tom's got his hand up.
I read the questions. I read the pre-questions before.
Well, so did I. So did I.
I had an answer. The first thing that came to mind when you asked, and that's a really good question, by the way. What didn't happen? I think what didn't happen was the confidence that I thought I would have. I hoped that I would have. It kind of just it never seemed to grow into what I would have expected it to. It's a different confidence than what I'd expected now compared to what I thought you'd just naturally grow in this confidence. But you kind of always second guessing everything in fatherhood and trying to raise children. And that stays with you, I think, perpetually. So yeah, that's what didn't happen.
I feel that.
No, it's a good question, mate. So for me, it's probably a little bit more externally for me. The whole breastfeeding thing with my wife really threw me. I knew that it was somewhat challenging, and in my mind at the time, I knew it was somewhat challenging for women. After hearing stories from my sister with my first nephew, but it wasn't until I was witnessing Katie's challenges that I realized how challenging breastfeeding can be, and how common it is for it to be unsuccessful. Or it also threw me as to how it had such a pivotal negative impact on Katie with her mental health because of it. The first 3 days were just, everything was focused on pretty much her and breastfeeding and just trying to, in inverted commas, get it right. And I was just really thrown as well by how pushy the midwives were on her breastfeeding, as opposed to asking her questions and listening to her. That kind of threw me as well. But yeah, I think that sort of, the breastfeeding side of things was something that I didn't expect to be such a challenge.
That's really interesting. That'd be similar for me as well. Like, actually, I think the whole birthing experience was completely unexpected for me because Charlie, who's 5 now, when we're having him, he's our oldest. We went in, so he was in induced labor because Amy was so overdue. And then from the induced labor, it went to complications. His heart rate dropped and we had to go emergency cesarean. Amy, during the cesarean, she actually started to feel stuff. And so they had to, which was just intense. Like she was just starting to feel the doctors like inside her, like it was intense. And so they had to put her under general. And so I was left with Charlie in a random hospital room, just me and him, for I think it was nearly 4 hours. And like the doctors came in from time to time, but I'm like, I just wasn't expecting it. Like I just was not expecting that at all. And then after all that kerfuffle, Charlie had a severe tongue tie to the point he couldn't get his tongue out of his mouth, and he just couldn't feed. Like he got jaundice and all this sort of stuff too, just the whole breastfeeding stuff. And that was all intense. Like this whole process was intense. And then you go on top of that and Amy's reaction and feelings to that as well, because, she was unconscious for, pretty much the first few hours of Charlie being born. So so everything's reliant on me. The doctors are all talking to me now because she doesn't know what was going on. And she just really missed out on those experiences. And then also the feeding experiences were intense for her as well, because she's like, again, like, I'm not doing it right. Why isn't this working and stuff? So yeah. And I think that's been something that got me it was so surprising to me, and something that I really appreciate about this podcast is people now sharing this stuff, because I felt so isolated in our experience. But then when you start to hear other people's journeys and stories and stuff like that, I was like, actually, no, I'm not alone. And
yeah, mate. Yeah, sorry, you keep going.
Well, then I was going to go to the next question, but you go.
I think, and it looked like Tom has something to add to that too, but I hear stories of fathers sharing similar stories of their experiences of their partner going through the challenges of breastfeeding as well. I remember going to a dad's group meetup. I won't say which one, just to protect their own privacy, but there was about 5 of us, and I think all 5 had very similar, if not quite similar stories. And the thing that really, the theme of the whole thing was, it came back to education, and not even education for me, and me being clearer as a father and a man as to how challenging it can be and what all the intricacies are. I didn't realize how really intricate it was, as to how to get it right. But also, I don't think my wife had anywhere near enough education on it either, really. And it doesn't necessarily stop people from going through difficult challenges and the other factors that can come into it. But I know that she was very well underprepared. And as I said, the more I've been involved with Dad's group and having conversations with other fathers, it's a very, very common theme, and one that can actually, for quite a few, has led to their own mental health problems as a result.
Yeah, definitely. Tom, were you going to say something, mate?
I was just going to highlight that now, being in this space for 8 years, knowing that, even as my dad would say, a problem shared is a problem halved. You're actually seeing that time and time again. We're seeing that. We were called out to community members, newborn experience in the first few days, and it was just so challenging and traumatic for them. Going through all the same things you're talking about now, in sharing it in a safe space has just been so, I guess, therapeutic for them, and that's why it's so exciting to have a space now like this where you can share or hear someone share and then realize, oh, that actually validates my feelings that I had, and those feelings that I had, which I bottled up, are actually valid, and there is a space to share that. Whereas for me, I didn't feel like there was a space, and so now we've created these spaces which are really healthy, and they're really helping dads, as Adam's saying, and you're saying, Blair, to be able to get into that headspace where they want to be, rather than, as you were referring to before, a traumatic experience for your partner or your wife can become an unnecessarily traumatic experience for yourself as well. And we know that whilst it might be only 10% of dads get, diagnosed depression in that perinatal period, those whose partners have, those challenges around depression, anxiety, means that the father is 40% more likely to have those challenges, right? So, just commenting on what we've seen, what, our own experiences, but then more broadly, what this process of sharing in a safe space is able to unlock some real long-term value for each family that can participate.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I know I went very deep, very quick, but I love that. I love doing that because it sets the tone for what we're trying to do. And I think what's really cool as well is this is peer-to-peer support, and we talk about that a lot with Dads Group, and that's our community Dads Group and our digital Dads Group sessions as well. Is we come in and we share and we go deep, and sometimes we don't go deep, but it's just that opportunity to break the ice and to go deep when needed, and to peer-to-peer support. We're supporting one another through our own journeys. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the thing and the important thing to keep in mind, though, is that we actually live that amongst each other as well. So, Tom and his family have become family to us because there's been so many times where he or I have leaned on each other just to call up. Usually I'll preface it with, hey, I'm calling you about a personal thing, not a work thing.
Yeah.
To start it off. But yeah, generally him and Kate have been there for us in the most toughest times that we've ever faced, and in all kinds of ways, and also celebrations too. And I think even when we are meeting with you, and as I'm getting to know you, I think it's just something to highlight, is that we actually live it amongst each other as well, and that our group leaders across Australia as well, that we connect with as often as we can. Again, we start off by talking about them as people and as fathers first, and business second.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, definitely. And so I want to change tones a little bit here now. I want to go back to a little bit of the beginning for, I guess, this beautiful romantic relationship of Adam and Tom, and just so how did you guys meet? What is that story? I've heard this before. I love it. I think it's so cool, and typical Tom as well. But how did you guys meet? Who wants to share this story? Tom. The finger's been pointed.
I don't know if it was romantic, but
no, it's beautiful.
Cool. I'm comfortable with that. I just saw, actually, first I didn't see Adam. I saw this little baby and looking at me, or trying to look at me. It was, I think, seemed like it was about 11 days old or something. It was very, very small, and it was on this guy's shoulder at the airport at the Sunshine Coast, and I was like, oh, cool baby. And I just chatted to Adam about his new baby, and it was his first born, and we got chatting, and I don't know, we ended up talking about the work that we're doing for new dads, and Adam was like uncharacteristically really excited and interested in what we're doing, and I was like, oh, you can join us if you want, it'd be great. And I think over the next few weeks, we just talked about what we actually do. And Adam was a social worker at that time with the Salvos, and it just helped us really build, and that's been the organization's journey, is like we meet new people with different skill sets or experiences, and we build on each one from a foundation of a vision to actually meaningfully doing programs. And I guess Adam's got his version of that, but it's really organic. It's really, you journey life together, you walk together along a path, and you meet up, and you work together, and you work together for a chapter that, you get to decide can go for a long time. And really with Adam, he's just been incredible, going from a guy who has a lot of information about and understanding experience in one area to a guy who's really been able to push his limits, corporately and in that kind of programmatic management and delivery space, which has been exciting to be a part of that journey as well.
Would you add anything to that journey? What was that like? To some dude coming up and talking to you at the airport, Adam?
I guess I'm always been I'm pretty introverted, extroverted. So talking with strangers isn't overly uncommon for me, but I think it was just really nice to just this guy that seemed, because I've seemed interested in coming and talking to me and also meeting my boy, with both my kids, particularly in their earlier years, I picked them up out of the pram and hold them up like a trophy, and so everyone can see them. So someone else coming and having a chat to me and wanting to get to know my child, I'm like, go for it, mate. Yeah, how beautiful is he? You're right. Yep, amazing. He's mine. Thank you very much. And so I think it was just really nice. And I think what I suppose really struck me was, he's walking through with his family, which now I know how challenging. There was 2 kids at that point, and Annabelle was quite young, and and I think it was just nice to have someone come by and have a chat, and also that's where that's where my involvement with Dad's group began, and something outside of social work really took off, where something else I could focus on and think about and get involved in, and something that I knew quite early on how great it was going to be. And so I started up Dads of Ascot Vale from there, and I think I was one of the first ones to get a partnership with the council through that, and that's where things progressed from there. And I guess it was just one of those things that I was just really thankful and grateful for. I would never have known about. I knew about Dad's group a few months earlier by seeing it on Facebook and joining the page, but I didn't really know until that moment that it was actually a thing. So, it was just something that I could get involved in and become really passionate about. Something has been really nice.
I think to add to that, everyone who joins any organisation, especially a small organisation with a big vision, they bring their own. We might have to wait for this announcement.
When are you boarding? Tell us. Oh, listen. What's the details?
Your flight has been cancelled.
Yeah.
You are staying in Wodonga for 3 more days.
I think I was talking about how everyone brings part of their own journey into it, and in Adam's journey, both with his wife Katie and with his children, they've all had their impacts on the way in which the organisation's grown locally in Moreland, the city council where he's working. But everyone brings a level of greatness, their own personal greatness to what the others don't have, and I guess that's what's so exciting. And with the Moreland project, the relationships that Adam's invested in there and the people and the communities has really changed the nature of that entire council's viewpoint on fathers. Adam's gone beyond, each of us have a little circle of where we work, and each new person goes beyond that circle or scope and takes it further. And Adam's done that in the Engaging Fathers program and the community program, both just as a normal dad talking to other dads about fathering, but also as a community leader and I guess an executive in that space who's proposing programs to governments and implementing programs, which is the dream. It is actually the dream to create platforms for people to succeed upon with their own unique capacity and skills, and then allow them a space to grow from that, a platform to to do greatness that isn't related to, a special program, so to speak, but it's related to the vision and who they are inside that vision. And that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like I've heard that story with you guys and starting up and everything together. Adam, you joining and so forth. But what is it, Adam, with your journey of fatherhood and your challenges and your experience? What is it that makes you now want to give that to someone else? Like, not give that to someone else because that's your experience, but what is it that drives you? What's your passion with Dad's Group and equipping and encouraging and challenging other dads?
Oh, mate, it's there's a couple, but one of them, well, I'll name them. Firstly, and in no particular order, but one of the things I'm really passionate about is helping fathers go from being the burden to their partner in the early stages of their child's life to helpful. And it's not to say that there are no helpful fathers out there, or you're not being helpful if you're listening to this right now. But statistically and generally, fathers can tend to be a bit more of a burden as opposed to helpful in those early stages. And so just helping fathers learn how they can be more helpful and ways to be more supportive, either through emotional support or through other means, and just realizing their impact. And the other, and that leads my next thing is, the other thing I'm really passionate about is helping fathers really grasp and understand how important they actually are to their child's learning and development, even during the antenatal period, and because I think it's still quite common for fathers to get this idea that they don't really have a role until their baby's kind of moving around. There's not really much they can do. And in actual fact, there's loads and loads of things that you can be doing that are connecting with your baby and that are actually building that relationship and demonstrating a certain way of living and values, even when you're changing your baby's nappy, or when you're feeding them a bottle, or anytime you're interacting with them, how you are with your partner in front of your baby or child. They're watching everything. And I think it's just really important, because I feel like that can have a tendency to lead again towards mental health issues, where if you're already feeling anxious and worried about, or kind of, Tom talked before about a lack of confidence or the lower confidence than he realized. Those sorts of things are connected to feeling isolated even in your own home. We talk a lot about being isolated from your mates and other people because you kind of go into your bubble for the first 6 months. But it's quite common for fathers to feel isolated within their own home. This disconnect between not only their wife but or partner, because they're not connecting in and having that emotional and physical connection as much as they did before bubs has come along, for obvious reasons. But also even a disconnect between them and their child, because child mainly wants mum, or is with mum, or spending time with mum, or breastfeeding, or sleeping, or whatever, and not really having that connection with their baby. So it can even, and so, yeah, they're the sorts of areas that, really kind of helping fathers understand how critical they are. So then, and that early awareness, to me, I think is helpful to be able to then feel like they can be more a part of it and actually celebrate their role and celebrate themselves as a father, as opposed to kind of more focusing on how mum and bub are, really. And I just think that that's really important.
That's great, man. And Tom, for you, mate, like what's something, if you were to meet a new dad in hospital, just had a baby, just popped out, and you were to talk to them about your experience in Dad's Group, not like the vision behind it or anything else like that, like away from the organization perspective, but in terms of your own personal experience because you're in Dad's Group of Coolum, is that right? So Dad's Group of Coolum, with Dad's Group of Coolum in mind, what would you say the benefits are to this dad? Like, come join us because of what?
Oh, if I met a dad in a hospital setting, and yeah, in my area up in Sunshine Coast, I'd I'd wait for this announcement to finish.
They're bloody rude, mate. Tell you what.
You want to mute yourself and I'll answer this. No.
All right, I'll mute him. You answer that, Adam.
Hearing, just knowing that you're going to be able, like, I'd basically just share with them that if you want to learn what fatherhood is like or going to be like, then come along and hear stories from other fathers, you know, because you're going to get a range of different stories. You're going to get a range of different viewpoints, and you'll also be watching how fathers are with their babies. For example, I'm quite what's the word I'm looking for? I'm you know, I kiss and cuddle both William and Marnie like a lot, and there are people that might see that, and sometimes now, as William gets older, I wonder whether I kind of have it in my mind. I wonder what people are thinking as they're seeing me kiss William, either on the cheek or on the lips or whatever it might be. There are many people out there that's uncomfortable for them, you know. Not that necessarily, I don't really care if I'll do what I want to do, but I wonder whether that, you know, I think just seeing that might actually make people go, oh, I wasn't really raised that way, but it actually is how I want to be, or vice versa, it might be the other way. You know, that's not really for me. So I think just being thrust into an environment where there's people that you can watch and learn and hear stories from, yeah, it can really help set you on your path compared to having no real idea at all.
Yeah, I'd reiterate some of those things that Adam's saying, and just from a personal perspective, that there's nothing that can be more powerful, I don't think, than a personal invitation from someone. You know, come to my house, or come to my park, or come and have a coffee with me. You know, let me buy you a coffee. Like that, people, you know, don't get that invitation every day of the week. They might not get it every, 6 months. They might not even get it every year or two. So the power of the invitation is really important, especially when it's genuine. And I think I'd pretty much focus on that invitation to be in the presence of other dads, myself included, and let me buy them a coffee. And also, just as Adam said, there's no better place where you can feel more connected, more confident, and more competent in your parenting than with a bunch of other dads. It's 3 C's that you get every time you go to a dad's group. You feel more confident because there's others who are there. You feel more competent and capable as a parent, and you feel immediately more connected. And those connectedness pieces that Adam was sharing before around, you feel disconnected. You can feel disconnected in your home. You can feel disconnected in your work. At dad's group, there is an absolute sense of connectedness to the other guys who are going through the same chapter. It doesn't matter whether you're laughing together, pouring your heart out, or just standing next to a swing, pushing a swing, or rocking a pram. There is a sense of connectedness that happens just by the virtue of you being there. And that is something that I just hope and wish that every new father would be able to experience that in those early weeks and months and years of being a new dad.
That's awesome, guys. That's really encouraging. And I think because I come from the perspective, and this is sort of revisiting a comment that I made earlier in this episode of how, Adam, when I first met you, I didn't really talk to you and stuff. So a bit of my journey in fatherhood, I didn't really struggle until my 3rd kid. My first and my second was all right, they kind of fit into my life. I was still quite social, I was still quite active and everything else like that. But by the time we had our 3rd kid, I really struggled. And that's not everyone's journey. That was just mine. And then COVID hit, and it was a whole thing for me. I really struggled. We were living in Melbourne at the time, and I really, really struggled with my mental health in that time. Struggled from burnout, struggled with my downfalls as a parent, because we had 3 kids now. It was just overwhelming in the mental health space that I was in. And so we moved to Wodonga October last year. And I met you not long after that, Adam, because we were at the Dockings farm. I already knew Tom and the Docking family from years ago. Great friends with them, and their parents were invested in me as a young adult a lot. And it was funny because it was the first real, and I think I spoke to you about this at a PBC Expo in Brisbane, Tom. I think I've shared this with you already, but it was the first like social gathering that I had in a very long time because of lockdowns in Melbourne. We just couldn't do it. And then I'm meeting with all these people that I hadn't either hadn't seen in years, or new people like yourself, Adam. And I froze. Like I literally hung out with the kids the majority of the time. I couldn't have a conversation. I really, really struggled with that. And it was funny, and I'm meeting more and more dads that have a similar scenario, not necessarily COVID related, but because like a lot of dads do get isolated once they have a kid or kids, multiple, whatever. And that effort to get from hearing about dad's group to a dad's group catch up, and that is quite daunting for a lot of dads too. One is, I've noticed with male culture in Australia is, well, we don't really need help. We don't really need friends. Like, you know, you just got to suck it up. You'll be all right. I'm not going to ask someone to be my friend. Another thing is because I find it very hard, and I've spoken to a lot of other dads that find it hard to put yourself out there. Like, you might be new to an area, or you just don't know anyone that goes to a dad's group or anything. To actually attend is a really hard thing as well. I'm not sure if it's pride or what the issue is there, but it's hard. And I still find it very hard, you know, even in my local dad's group here. Like, we're hopefully doing a catch up this weekend, but for me to put something up on our Facebook page is very hard for me to do. I'm still wrestling with these social anxieties and whatever else that I'm going through. So for someone that's like on early days of where I'm at now, and I'm in a very different place now. Since being in Wodonga, it's really helped me break out and work through a lot of these things. I've been to counseling and all this sort of different stuff. If you both, and I'll start with Tom first, if you met me, say, this time last year, and you knew what I was struggling with, how would you encourage me, or what's something that you would want to say to me to encourage me to get along to a dad's group or a digital dad's group session or something like that?
I think firstly, Blair, with everyone, it's finding out where you're at. So asking you the question of where you're at and understanding who you are and where you're at before you just throw prescriptions of different programs and services to people. You know, I often see people do that in an effort to help, but really they're actually just trying to feel better about themselves helping someone. I don't think that's where you want to be. You want to be caring for someone and just saying, you know, where are you at? And just waiting and having some awkward silence. And even if in that conversation that day you don't get much, asking again a few days later. And then some people need a lot of time to unpack where they're at. Some people are intimidated by that question, where are you at? You know, and that's, you know, the longer we stay in this space, we realize that respectful space of silence and curiosity is a really caring approach. And so I think, yeah, it would come back to how understanding where you're at. And if you don't share that you're like that, maybe you are sharing through non-verbal cues that you're not feeling super confident. And maybe there's a space to share, you know, in the first meeting around some of the other programs that we do, the digital ones, or, you know, like listening to a podcast or looking at some of the services, etc. But typically you can feel like you're doing a good job by throwing out services, but to get meaningful connection with someone requires us all just to stop, look at them in the eye, and try and work out where they're at by asking them some really genuine, caring questions and just shutting up and listening to them. And when I say listen, I don't mean to their words. Listen to them with all your senses and just be like, that guy's struggling. All right, well, maybe, you know, do I want to, as a dad's group member or leader, reach out to them and go out, you know, invite them to a coffee just together? Or do I just want to invite them to a dad's group? And there's no judging either way. Whatever you want to do is what you want to do. But yeah, I think caring is the first place, and you don't want to create something where you're required, you know, to continually help them, you know, every day of the week. but it's about, just being that one person that did care that week or that month, or that year, and that's pretty important. So I think getting the sense to them, for letting them come across, and I've done this and failed so many different times in different ways, but even sometimes I've said to people, probably not in the first meeting, but after knowing someone for a while, I've actually just said, look, I actually really care about you, and I care about where you're at, and I don't know where you're at, and I understand that you're not in a spot where you can articulate how you're going, but if there is something I can do to help, I'd really love to be able to help, and that just leaving it there is I guess a genuine attempt to reach out, and when they're in their timing, they can come back, they can text you later, they can SMS you, they can join the dad's group, they can do whatever they want. I think that the important piece is that genuine connection, and I see that in the leaders that we've been able to grow and connect with across Australia. There are these people who do that naturally, and I think that's the powerful thing.
Would you add anything to that, Adam?
Yeah, I've got a quick little story I can share that actually happened this morning relating to that, but which actually kind of connected to what you were talking about before, Blair. Is that it's funny you talk about how the day at the Dockings farm, which by the way, what an amazing day. But I did kind of look across at you a couple of times and wondered, should I go over and have a chat with this guy? But something pulled me away, which is it's not so typical for me to do that, but that I did, and we didn't really talk much. But on the flip side, this morning there was a dad that was walking ahead of, like, we were in the same lift coming out of daycare, and as he was walking towards the front door, I kind of heard this huff from him, like like that, where you feel like you've gone, like you feel like the day is already over and it's only just started, so I like, he was walking in front of me, and I just sort of said to him, "Hey mate, are you grabbing a coffee now?" Because most parents, you could see, will leave and go and grab their coffee, and then the pathway is almost the same every day. He's like, yeah, I was just grabbing one from next door, which happens to be one of the places I go to. And I said to him, "Would you want to sit down and have a coffee together on me?" And he's like, "Oh," sort of looked at me a little weird. I don't know if it was because he might have felt it was a little sudden, or I was coming on a bit too strong. I don't know, but I was like, "No, mate, do you want to just sit down and have a coffee?" I was just going to grab one. I've got 15 minutes or so. Let's have a chat. And we sat down, and yeah, we sat down for about 20 minutes or so, had a coffee, and got to know, talked a bit about each other, but yeah, and he shared quite a bit with me about how he's actually going without me even really. I mean, I asked him, how's dad life treating you so far, as I normally ask anyone, and then that kind of led to him talking about some challenges that he's been facing and whatever. And when we shook hands and said, "See you later," he was like, "This is like the best thing I've done in ages. Could we'll catch up again sometime?" And then I said, "Oh, well, I've actually got a group here," but it was had nothing to do with the group in Ascot Vale here. Throughout that whole conversation, I wouldn't have brought it up at all had he not said that. It was because I wanted the focus to be mainly about just having a chat with him, and yeah, again, and it's just nice to have had that experience, and that for him it made an impact on him, and just, I suppose it's something that I've learned, particularly since being involved with Dad's group, is that there's a high chance that if you see a father, the chances are that he hasn't had a sit down or a chat with another father either at all, or if not for a long time. And I just know that if you're not getting that space to just have a chat, whether it's deep or not, that you're not talking to anyone. You're not talking to your partner normally. And so who are you talking to? So I don't know, just something that I thought about it in an instant. It was, and you know, even walking towards daycare, there's a few, we've kind of almost got this timing right where there's dads walking out to their car to put their kids in the car, and there's about 3 or 4 houses in a row that are, they're putting, you know, they're walking their kids out to put them in the car, and we say hello to each other. I don't know their names. We say hello to each other as I'm walking by, and William even says to me, Dad, what's their name? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, why did you say hello to them? And I was, because just being friendly and saying hello to another dad, you know, and I suppose it's just, it's kind of just nice to have that, that even though it's a 10-second connection, that it's almost like an acknowledgement of, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. We're both dads. Catch you later. Enjoy.
I
your
love
day.
the dad nod, man.
Yeah.
I get the dad nod a lot.
What's the dad nod?
Down the shop. Yeah, respect,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah. They're either nailing it or they're having a tough time, and you're like, that acknowledgement of how shit or how challenging it can be.
I like what you said there, the huff. And when you said that, I was just thinking of all the different sounds of the huffs that I make every week, you know, like the end of the day huff compared to the start of the day huff. And I'm like, that's a thing, isn't it? That kind of getting out of the daycare huff, picking the kids up from school. You know, someone's like, ah, and then other ones are like, no.
Maybe we should put a challenge out there for dads to give us their best
Guess the huff. Guess the huff.
Guess the huff. Yeah.
Guess the
What
huff.
huff is this? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can almost, it's like
receiving a coffee huff.
Yeah. The coffee huff, I have that each morning, and I think it's like the feeling you can get from the room in the lift as if in a workplace, you know, or it's the same with the daycare drop off. You can just hear a bunch of huffs from parents as you're going back down the lift after dropping them off or trying to get them to daycare. So anyway, to answer your question, Blair, you know, it's just something that I suppose I've become more and more intentional on trying to be intuitive and notice these sorts of things, to reach out, like Tom was saying, and show an act of kindness and an act of care that and I don't do it just because I'm hopeful that it might change someone's life or moment or outlook, but just to do something, you know, and I think it's really important. I agree with Tom that it's from a place of selflessness, where it's not to make me feel better. It does, but it's not about that. It's to make the other person feel better. And particularly in the social worker and the community services industry, from my background, it can be an area where a lot of people are in it because to give back, or to, you know, and to me, that's not really kind of about the individual. It's more about the person themselves, you know. And yeah, I just think it's really critical to help us stay connected with other people and just enjoy our day wherever we can. And it really sucks that you went through that time of challenge, Blair, and but I suspect you would have learned a lot, not only about yourself, but about other people and life, and just, you know, navigating life as a parent of 3.
Yeah, definitely. No, it was massive for me, man. It was massive for my family too, because I was the main breadwinner of the family. And then when I crashed and burned, like Ellie was, Elodie, I think she wasn't even 1 yet, maybe. And that was a very intense thing for our family to go through. So yeah, no, it's been extremely hard. The last 3 years have been extremely hard for us as a family, but you know, I think the fact is, you know, I got help when I needed to get help. That was a big thing, like professional help from a counselor. I had to move when I had to move. Like we had to make some drastic calls, and my wife was extremely supportive. And we're still working through stuff for sure. It's going to be a bit of a journey for us still, but I know the impact that Dad's Group's had for me. I know that, like, even like I said, I'm still trying to get plugged in a bit more here in Wodonga, and that's just the things that I need to work through. But just even working with you guys and chatting with you guys every week has been huge for me. Just those constant connections with people that I know that are like, you've got similar experiences. They're different, but like you've had similar experiences to me, and that was huge. Like when Amy and I had when Amy had the miscarriage earlier this year, like the fact is, like I shared that with you guys, and that was a huge light bulb moment for me, because I'm like, that is so rare. Like, and it happened to us. Like, why did it happen to us? But then you guys, like, we went through that. And just those stories and that peer-to-peer support, like that's what's been so amazing for me. And just in my journey as fatherhood, like I've got so many issues, like my temper, my patience, like all these things, I share with you guys openly, and I'll share that on this podcast openly too, because I want people to be able to share those things rather than trying to bottle it up or slog through it or try and work it out. Just to know that there's groups of people around Australia here that want to get beside you as well. As they go through their journey, they want to journey that with other people as well. And the power of that, the power of story, the power of camaraderie and all that sort of stuff is huge, and has had an impact on my life in a big way. So
That's
we'll wrap
great,
up.
mate.
And what I want to say, I just want one more thing from you guys is, if, going back to that guy in the hospital, or guy that's about to go to the hospital with baby on the way, what's one piece of advice that you would say to that guy?
I think I'll touch on what you were just talking about, because this is something that
we'd firstly say we don't give advice, but here's my insights and my what do you call it? Insights and experience.
Sorry, boss. I'm sorry, boss.
It's a challenge. You're right, and yeah, I give any. It's I think, because what you were just talking about, I'll just talk about that first, and then I'll give maybe a different tip. But what you spoke about, and because I went through a similar thing when William was 10 months old, I crashed and burned. And what the similar theme is, and it's pretty much across the board, is that we didn't act when we should have acted. We acted when everything crumbled. And so it's great that we both, sourced professional help and did different things environmentally or other, reduced risk factors or stress factors or whatever as a result. But we didn't do it before, and I think usually the typical thing is that I need to be the rock. I need to, I don't want to put my family through any undue stress, and I'll get past the internal battle, basically the internal battle. And, I think it's just, it just speaks again to that typical thing of just acting and being reactive as opposed to proactive in getting support. So one thing I would say to new and expecting fathers is if you feel that things are different or not right, and I'll say it in that manner because a lot of the time people don't recognize things or really understand their feelings well enough to then know what to do with it. So just talk about it in a sense as if things feel a bit weird or a bit different or more stressful than normal, then act early. I would say that. In terms of a different tip, I would just say go easy on yourself, and you just embrace the challenges and the celebrations, and just enjoy the ride as much as you can. It's going to be the most challenging thing you'll ever go through in your life. And that you'll be learning over time, and just embrace it and enjoy it, because it goes by so fast. It goes by super, super fast. Before you know it, they're walking around, and next thing you know, they're talking back at you and got their own mind. Damn them! But they've been great, and so I think it'd be just really important to just be embrace the moment while you can, as much as you can, and be kind and supportive to your partner, and just know that they're just as terrified and freaking out as much as you are, and have almost no idea just as much as you about being a parent. So don't expect them to know everything, and don't keep asking them questions, because chances are they don't know the answer either. So find out for yourself or ask another dad. So that's my tip.
Thomas?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to say, but really, if you had to distill it all down to something, it is you're coming into the possibly one of the most important chapters of your life, the most important chapter for you to change your identity as a human. So going from a dude to a dad, and that responsibility. The question is, what are you going to do with that? And are you going to let it pass over and you're going to miss it and you're going to go back to work because it's too hard, or are you going to make the most of it? And that's really everyone's individual choice. Everyone who I've ever met in that pre-birth stage has always wanted to make the most of it. But I have met a lot of people afterwards who have unintentionally not made the most of it, and life has taken them away from what they would later say should have been or could have been their priority. That's what we want to help people to avoid. And the question is, it's a very, I guess, it's a confronting question. What are you going to do about this chapter? It's most likely one of the most important chapters of your life. And when you're, on your deathbed looking back, you'll remember this chapter as a chapter that you either invested in or you chased other things that you thought were important at the time. And I think that question is powerful enough for people to find who they want to be and do something about it. Look, Dad's Group's just one way of doing that, but I know of thousands of other fathers who are just doing their bit. And for them, some of them are taking their kids camping with another, family or friend or a neighbor when they're only, a few months old, and that's powerful, and that's awesome. That's doing, Dad's Group, or the principles of Dad's Group. So the only reason why our organization exists is because there was nothing to actually, put a ring fence around this and say, hey, this is a thing and it should be a thing, and you've got an opportunity to do something. So what are you going to do? And here's a whole bunch of other guys who've done great things and are doing great things. Join with them and enjoy that space. So yeah, I'd just say it's possibly one of the most important. It's also one of the most exciting and beautiful chapters of your life, or can be. Or there are definitely moments in there that are very, very exciting and very, very beautiful, but they can be snatched away so quickly by trauma or fear or anxiety. And that's where I think being connected to a peer group, or just means, going to a Dad's Group, having a coffee, or joining online for an online antenatal class or something like that, those things can actually help you not lose sight of the beautiful moments that are passing. And sharing those makes them richer, and it validates them and calls them out. So I think I was just reflecting, and as you're talking, as you walk through life, you kind of, as you were saying before, Blair, you're journeying with your partner and with different friends and different people, but the journey just seems to forever continue until you kind of pass on. It doesn't seem to stop, right? So I think the advice, which I wouldn't give because I don't give advice, but the insights and experience I would say is, how do you build milestones to celebrate in that? And that's what Kate, my wife, and I have done. We've started to build milestones. Like, we're doing this now, and that's an achievement for us, and we're going to celebrate that and enjoy it. And the next milestone, it might be, early on, it might be the first time that Dad takes baby and Mum goes and gets a massage or gets her hair done. That's a milestone the first, few weeks. Another milestone might be, this is the first time that as a family we're going out to dinner together, with little Bub in the capsule. That's a milestone. Celebrate that, document that. And other milestones might be, we're doing an activity together that we thought we'd never be able to do, again, because we had a baby. Like, who are you and who is your partner, and how's your family going to achieve these milestones. They're going to be so different to what your dreams were before children came along. But they're going to be, probably more important. And making the most of it is the attitude that'll carry you through the hardest and hardest of circumstances. And we've met so many new young parents who've gone through, such difficult trials with their infants and with the health of their kids. But each one of them has a story of inspiration to share, and those stories are part of their journey, and those journeys influence the communities that they're a part of. And that's where you find the richness of this beauty of life. And to overlook that and just head back to work and not engage in that, it would be a bigger loss. And I think my recommendation is just to stop, take it all in, think about who you are, think about who you want to be, and how you're going to be the person you want to be, how you're going to be the parent you want to be, how you're going to be a leader in your street or in your community. And no one will forgive you more than that child you're about to have. No one will look up to you more. And if you think work is more important, or your sporting career is more important, or substitute anything there is more important, well, you'll realise that that child is going to be most influenced by you, and that's up to you. What are you going to do with that? And that's so challenging for me to even say, because I know that so many days I'm doing the work thing, and I'm not colouring in pencils with my kids, or I'm not kicking the ball. But it does help me to say that out loud, and then go and make it a priority today to do that. And I'll do it 100 times more than I would have if I didn't have this peer support. And to me, that's why it's so helpful, is that I'm not the person I want to be without accountability, and Dad's group gives me that accountability to come back and just deliver on who I want to be amongst all the other important things in my life, and not miss those moments. And of course we all miss them. Of course we all feel guilty we miss some of them, but I don't want to miss them all, and I'm not missing them all because I've got people like you guys around me, and the broader network of mums and dads in the Dad's group and Man with a Pram kind of environment, and these guys are just really reminding us what's important in life. And it's pretty simple, but it's very powerful. So yeah.
I like Tom's answer better. Can you cut mine out?
No, I'll just cut his out, then yours will be better. It's fine, dude. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
But one thing that you said, Adam, what I wanted to say as well, because this has been my experience, is it's so much easier. So it's so much harder to find support and help when you need it, than rather to already have it and already be plugged into that support network and everything. And then when you need it, you get it. So that's a big plus for Dad's group as well. So what were you going to say, mate? And I'll wrap us up after that.
No, that's right. And I think it's just what Tom was just talking about now is something that I've learned and becoming more and more clear, and then even a guy was sharing a story with me on the weekend where even there was a point during his teen years where his dad just suddenly became disengaged with the family, and just started pouring himself into other things and stopped going on family holidays and a few other things. So, which really struck me. I'm like, So when he was quite engaged early on in the years, so I suspect something's happened for him during that, at that time, that's kind of made, changed his direction. So you're right, Tom. I think it's a great point, and it's something that I know it works for me too, is a reset. When I feel like I am pouring myself into work or other things I've got going on, or study or footy coaching, whatever it might be, more, and that's taken me away from my family a bit more. It is a great way to bring yourself back to, because you can't stop those things. You can't stop working. You can't just, quit whenever you want. Maybe you can, but it's going to have other risks. But it's even if it doesn't necessarily change anything, even if it's just a reset, even if it's just I can't quit my job, but is there something I can do? Is there time that I could be spending with my children? Am I spending my time intentionally with them that's quality time, so it's not so much to make you go, oh, all right, I've got to go make these major calls. It's more allow you to kind of go, at least reflect and think about how you're fathering in that particular time, or even how you're being with your partner. Are you spending quality time with your partner? Are there for them emotionally? Are you being supportive of each other? Are you helping each other thrive? I suppose it's something that we want to make sure that people remember, that it's not just your children, it's your partner. And I think that can be something that can be quite a challenge to work yourself around, is that you go from life was about work, your partner, where you could do whatever you wanted, go wherever you wanted. It was about your mates. You could go and drink and party whenever you want to party, but you go and, wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted, prior to having children. And then all your priorities and all of those things change as soon as, or at least leading into the birth and after the baby's born. And that can be quite a big adjustment for a lot of people. And from a father's lens, that can be quite a big adjustment. And I think the reality is you've either got to embrace that change and that's the new life, and then weave your way in, weave other things into it, or go down the path like Tom was talking about and just remain on the what work is life pathway. And if that's you, then okay, be you. But as Tom said, there will be consequences of that down the line, whether and that may not be in your favor. So I think it's just really important to think about. And I think it's a great question you're asking there, Tom, and it's something that I might steal that one as to, okay, you're a dad now, great. How are you going to be? And I just think that's a really good question. So, mate, I've really enjoyed having this chat, and I think I've been so thankful and grateful to be part of this organisation, and I've grown. I know that I've grown in both personally and professionally, and as a result, and I just couldn't thank Tom and Kate and their family and yourself, Blair, and Dad's group in general. If Tom hadn't have walked past me and had that weird conversation with a random guy for seeing my cute little man William, we wouldn't probably be where we are now today. And I just think it's just incredible. I do share that story a lot, because not only is it just a nice story to share, but it encapsulates what Dad's group is about. Is that he just walked by and just had a chat, like that was it, and then amazing things came from it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's always going to be. We were at a PBC expo. We speak to thousands of different dads or expecting dads over that weekend. We're probably going to see one, maybe two again at best, and so we got no idea what kind of impact we may or may not have had on those, but we have on those individuals. But I know that we have hundreds of quite in-depth conversations with those fathers or expecting fathers, during our time over that weekend, but no idea whether we've had any impact or not. And if that's all right, I'm okay with that. And I just think, again, it's the same thing. There's various people that we talk to and spend time with over the years that we'll either know we've had an impact on or not. But again, it doesn't stop us from doing anything, because it's not about the gratification and the self-worth from that point of view. It's about knowing that no matter what, I know that I will have an impact on at least one father, but I know that there are many more that will benefit, and mother and partner and children, and knowing that generational change is something that that I know Tom, again, has been really, really big on with helping making sure that we recognize that and understand that. Because even though we're doing something that's really we're passionate about, doesn't mean that every day is bliss. We could have our own days of the huff. But most of the time it feels nice to jump on work with Dad's group and enjoy the day.
No, that's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for this. This has been great. This is the first time that we've done this together as a team as well, and I've loved it. I've really enjoyed just hearing a bit more from you guys and just doing this journey together, which has been absolutely amazing. So thank you guys so much. Tom, thank you so much, dude. I know you've got tonsillitis at the moment at an airport. That keeps interrupting us, but appreciate you being here, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to find out more about Dad's Group, join a digital Dad's Group session, which is where these episodes are recorded from, or connect with some of our amazing partners. Please check out our website at www.dadsgroup.org. We'll put the link for this in the podcast notes for you guys a little bit later. Please remember to like, subscribe, and review, and please share with any dads and families that may benefit from these episodes. Cheers, guys. You have a good one.